What's up, everybody? It's Bonchagoon here. Today's video is brought to you by Clicks420. His video suggestion seemed pretty brilliant to me, which is... It's going off me mentioning in the video, my last video, that when I was 40 million mined, I wasn't the greatest attacker, which is still the case. And he wants me, or she, to make a video on why and what we could do to improve our overall troop losses. And throwing a little guide on talents in there as well. Well, buddy, let me tell you something. I'm going to go ahead and do that. However, I want those of you watching, because they do not know the answers to these questions, to check the comments below, because I want those that do know exactly what they're doing and know it better than me to, in the comments, correct me on anything that I get wrong, because I'm no expert, mind you, and some of these things, they're theories of my own. They're things I've tested and have seen to be true from what I've seen, but aren't necessarily going to be true in all circumstances. So, without further ado, for troop losses, let's see. What I would do, generally speaking, is when you send out a wave, you're attacking, you want to counter the troops that you think are going to be up front. To check what's going to be up front, generally when I scout, let's see if I could find any scout. Oh, okay. Scouting here, I usually check what leader they have sheltered, and then what they do have sheltered. Because generally speaking, if they're sheltered, I would figure that they're going to take their most important troop type and shelter it as well. This guy had 112,000 stealth snipers sheltered, and then 65,000 Royal Cavalry. I did not know, I don't recall what was sheltered, but I see on his wall 4 of the heroes are cav heroes. So although he has more stealth snipers, I would generally assume that he's going to have a cav formation in front, which means that I would counter with a ranged formation. Now, when I'm sending a wave, I generally try and send 1 to 3k tier 1 troops. And I send the ones that are up front. And the reason that I do that is because it doesn't weaken the wave all that much. It hurts your morale a little bit, but if you're going to win, then you're going to win. So, with the 1,000 to 3,000 tier 1, it'll cover a few of your wounded proportion, because 40,000 of the wounded are actually dead. So, if you can fit most of that as tier 1 instead of tier 3, then that's going to be cheaper in terms of your losses. If you send too many tier 1, then it weakens your wave too much and it lowers your effectiveness. So 3,000 at most is what I would send of tier 1. When I'm joining rallies, I never send tier 1. I always send tier 4 with tier 3 as layers. Now, if you are only a tier 3 player, only send tier 3. It's going to hurt you a little bit, but when it comes to a rally, you're going to want the most effectiveness as possible. You really don't want your morale going down in that. So tier 3 minimum is the best to do. If you're watching and you're in like a very new kingdom and most people are running around with tier 1 and tier 2, that's a different case. But this is once you're established and set up and everything. So, what next to say? To minimize troop losses. Pop an attack boost. That's pretty well given. You get them pretty easily. You want anti-scout on, but right before you hit, switch to the attack boost, then switch back. If they scout you while you're doing that, sometimes it'll happen. Just be prepared to be rallied once that happens. You also want to make sure that your troops that are up front are bolstered. They're very strong. So make sure that, say you're doing infantry up front, make sure you've got as much infantry gear as you possibly can. Now for your talents, defense is weakest. So I personally, once I put my stuff into attack, I don't have any points put towards the defense. What I max out is squad health 2, and then since I vary my attacks between all 3 troop types, I personally max out all 3 of the tier 3 offenses. And then because I'm infantry and ranged preferred, with ranged being the most, I will max out the ranged offense 2. The next that I would go for would be infantry offense 2. And I would also try and max out squad health 1. And that's my personal preference. Depending on your troop type, it might be different. You have to know what your best troop type is and what you're going to have in front most often. Now, for defending, when you're taking a rally, what I've noticed is the wounded that you suffer are divided proportionally based on who reinforces you. So say, what I mean by proportionally is, say you have 600,000 ranged, and each person reinforcing you has 200,000 ranged. Now those aren't going to divide evenly in terms of, like, each of you are going to suffer 50,000 ranged wounded. Because you have more ranged, you're going to suffer more ranged wounded. I would say that you would suffer 3 times the amount of ranged wounded, unless all of them are wounded, in which case, never mind, that would be 3 times still. But, let's say 800,000's in your castle, and each person reinforces you with 200,000. You would suffer the same amount proportionally to them, which would be more than what they do as the defender. So what I recommend is you have good beds, at least 400,000 to take away. Wow, I have a lot of wounded right now. At least 400,000 if you're defending in a rally. And have as many people reinforce you as you can so that you can split the wounded up even more. And make sure that the troop type that you have up front is the type that people are reinforcing you the most in, because you want to be able to spread the wounded out to lower the amount that you suffer. For those of you that watched Max's defense, you see that he suffered, more wounded than he personally has in beds, but it was spread out because he knew how to defend himself properly. In addition to that, if I'm taking a rally, say I've got all these tier 1 right here. If I'm going to put ranged up front, I'm going to open up the rally, make sure you don't send the leader, and then shelter the tier 1. The reason for this being is if you're being reinforced with tier 3, which you would like to be reinforced with tier 3 and tier 4, you don't want to get reinforced with tier 1. If you're reinforced with tier 3 and tier 4, they're going to get wounded after the tier 1. And that won't be split evenly. That's guaranteed first to get wounded, first to go into your infirmary. And if your infirmary fills up, first to die. So, the best bet, in my opinion, and this is where, if people disagree with me, then feel free to say so in the comments section. The best bet is to get the tier 1 out of the way if you can. If you have too many to do that, then I would suggest just leaving them out. Like if you have 500,000 grunts and you feel like you need to put infantry up front for whatever reason, then have as many grunts out as you can to at least increase their combat effectiveness, because they're going to fill up your infirmary either way. You're probably going to suffer some dead. But say you have less than 200,000 grunts. Throw them all into your shelter so that they're not in the way, so that they don't show up in your wounded, and so that your infirmaries don't fill up, because they're probably going to die. I had a guy the other day. He had more troops than Max. He had better gear, or at least gear on par with Max, and about the same stats. He put his strongest troops up front, which were his calves, and he took a rally, and he had 100,000 cataphracts, all of them dead, along with a few tier 3. But the thing about that is he could have suffered no cataphracts dead in exchange for probably a few thousand more tier 3, which, when you equate that out to training times, doesn't make it worth it, because training 100,000 tier 1 will take a lot longer than 10, 15,000 tier 3. But in any case, that is my suggestion to you for that. Because, that leads me to my next point. This is what I noticed, and again, I could be wrong, but from what I've tested, this appears to be the case. Let me see if I starred any of these reports. I feel like I didn't. Yes, here I did. You all remember this report right here. Sweet JC attacking me. I didn't have many reigns, but it all worked out. This is the perfect example of what I'm about to explain. What they're attacking with doesn't matter. As you can see in my dead, right there, I had dead archers because they died first, and I did not follow my own rule. It was too hectic, and I had forgotten to shelter my tier 1 that were up front. But in any case, let's look at what got reinforced right there. Killa reinforced me with 200,000 heroic cannoneers. Iggs reinforced me with a split, but with heavy stealth snipers. As you can see right there, Iggs suffered nearly 80,000 wounded stealth snipers. Killa suffered only 2k heroic cannoneers and wounded. Meanwhile, I suffered 420,000 stealth snipers and then just a few heroic cannoneers. The simple fact is tier 3 are hit before tier 4. The faster the troop, the earlier it's hit. So when ranged are up front, archers get hit. And then the tier 2, which I honestly don't even remember the name of because I never use them anymore, get hit. And then the stealth snipers, and then heroic cannoneers. Now, that means that when you're receiving reinforcements, even tier 4 holders should reinforce you with some tier 3. I would say about 50,000 tier 3 and then 150,000 tier 4. If they have an army size boost, then 50,000 tier 3 and then the rest tier 4. Because had Killa reinforced me with a few stealth snipers, I probably would not have had any dead stealth snipers. Because he as well would have had the damage of the tier 3 split up a little bit, and so he would have taken on some wounded tier 3, which would have lowered my wounded proportion. But because it was all tier 4 that he reinforced me with, they were the last to get hit, so it wasn't added to the proportion of wounded that was thrown in. So while defending, I would recommend that all tier 4 holders send a few tier 3 as well, in the formation that they know is going to be up front. The tier 3 need to be the first to get hit for it to be counted into the wounded proportion. And feel free to test this out personally, and I really encourage you not to just dismiss this as false, because I've ran a few tests myself, and this is the biggest thing that I've noticed that I haven't seen talked about a lot. And I would like other people to test it out to confirm whether or not it's true. Because, personally, what I've seen, it seems pretty simple to me. And also, I'd like to point out, 80,000 stealth snipers for Iggs, but he had reinforced me with about 110,000 right there. Meanwhile, I had a lot more stealth snipers, so I took more wounded. Proportionally speaking, that might have been about the same. So, in terms of troop loss, I think that that is all that I have to give you. Obviously, when you're attacking, let me see. Let me show you my formation right here. Edit battalions. Let's look at the infantry. As you can see, 250,000 troops. I have 150,000 infantry, and then I have 100,000 ranged. As you can see in my formation, I have 2 ranged heroes and 3 infantry heroes. For every 50,000 troops of one type, that's commanded by one other hero. So, the 150,000 infantry are covered by my One Eye, my Demon Slayer, and my Oathkeeper. Each of them goes into battle commanding 50,000 of those infantry. if you're hoping for hero boosts, but don't form your troops correctly, you're not going to get your maximum efficiency out of it. Like, say, you use people with all army boosts, but only send one troop for each one. Like, if you're wanting to slam someone with just pure caps, and you send Songstress and Berserker along with other heroes because they give army boosts, and you send one infantry and one ranged, and then the rest cavs, they're only good for those one of each of those troops. And they do distribute that army boost to everyone else, but the heroes also fight in battle. And once they're, what would it be called? Squad. Once their squad is all done, they're done as well. And the heroes themselves deal damage in battle. Like, let's see if it'll show it on this. Right there, you can see it right there. Deals 200% squad attack as damage to enemy troops. The heroes themselves are fighting in the battle, and when they're not fighting, it's lowering the efficiency of your wave. So make sure that you send 50,000 troops as best as you can, as often as you can, to do that, because I know that when I'll be sending in attacks and everything, I'll be going and swapping around things, and I won't get it perfect, but I'll get it as close as I can. That also reminds me, one other thing. You want to try and attack as quickly as you can. The longer it takes you to attack, the more times they have to prepare to you. If you scout someone, check the scout report as quickly as you can, and then exit out of the screen and make sure that nobody's reinforcing the player. Because I've had situations where people have reinforced while I wasn't looking at the screen, and then I got caught off guard because of it. In addition to that, when you send out the attack, keep an eye on the attack and make sure that nothing happens in between the time that you send the troops and the wave hits. And also, keep an eye on world chat, because if you're out solo burning and stuff, chances are the hive that you're burning is probably going to post your coordinates in world chat, hoping that some bigger ally of theirs will come in and save them. And sometimes that'll be the case. And if you are big enough to be soloed, someone big will possibly port right next to you and time hit your troops returning. I know my alt account. My alt account is decently built. Let's see if I'm still wearing war gear on it. Come on now. Yeah. Okay, the third accessory piece is actually a blight ring that's going to green right now. But as you can see, the war gear is not horrible. Most of the pay-to-play stuff is all green or white. But it was a little worse than this back when I got hit. But still, I had about 600,000 troops. I was out burning just to rack up some kills. And then A2Z's, which I don't know if he's still in that guild, but at the time, A2Z's Oreo McFlurry ported right next to me and timed hit my returning troops with my leader in it, and he took me down in one hit. He filled up my infirmaries and killed over 300,000 troops all in one hit and took my leader. And it was because I didn't keep an eye on world chat. I had no idea that he was about to port right next to me. Had I known that my coordinates were posted in world chat, I probably would have recalled my troops and then ported away as quickly as I possibly could. Because I was in a kingdom that had multiple Titan players like him, the threat of that is imminent. They're always going to look for a chance to massacre people that they can, because it's a war game, and that's just how it is, and there's nothing wrong with that. But in any case, guys, those are the tips that I have to offer you. If you know contradictions to things that I've said, please post them in the comments. Those of you that don't know and are actually watching this video specifically to learn what I know, please check comments as well, because fact checking. You always want to fact check. Don't assume that everything that I say is right, because I'm no expert in the game. But in any case, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Until the next one. Oh, and please send more suggestions, because this was a great video idea. And there's possibly more great ideas out there. Until the next video, guys. Bye.